And we welcome back to the microphones the one and only Stephen A. Smith, who was not happy with his last appearance here on this program. He sent me a very nasty email, which I'm not allowed to talk about.
Stop lying, man. What's going on, buddy? What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing good. No, well, you come on. You weren't happy about the last time because you didn't want the conversation that we had privately to be brought publicly. I didn't know that.
Well, it wasn't really. It's not the conversation itself. Let's get that straight. I mean, you and I speak very openly, and not only that, I know that you're knowledgeable, and yes, you are more knowledgeable about politics than I am. I will give you that. But at the same time, what I was trying to explain to you is that it's a difference between having a conversation and for you to be reading private emails over the airwaves, which is what you did.
Well, no, I just told the conversation. I don't think what's so bad about you telling me that I've got to find scenarios, situations where I can give some Barack Obama some credit.
Because what I was trying to explain to you is that I was trying to explain to you some of the dynamics that you have working against. You got to understand, Sean, you call yourself my friend. You got to understand something about your buddy here. What I like is truth. I like to get as close to the truth as possible.
Same here.
And I believe that in my community, the black community, I think that by and large, we've been getting things from one side, meaning the Democratic Party, because the Republican Party has done such an absolutely horrific job of disseminating their message to a particular community, meaning the African American community and other minority communities throughout this country, that ultimately the Democratic
Party...
What
would you want the Republican Party to say or do that you think would have significant gains in terms of its outreach to the African American community?
I would tell you the same thing that I told Mark Levin, the great one who you know I love.
Yes.
And that is this. I said it's not so much that the message is wrong, is that the Republican Party usually has terrible messengers. We get caught up a lot of times, in the black community, the message from the Republican Party, from conservatives, not necessarily yourself, even though you've got your own issues, and we can get into that in a second. The reality is that the message emanating from the conservative side usually appears in such a poor fashion that it's summarily dismissed by the Democrats and by the left as being racist, and folks buy into that. And you guys, not meaning you, Sean, not a Mark Levin, but Republican officials, politicians, do such a horrendous job of defending themselves and presenting their arguments in a salient fashion. And because of that, the Democratic Party has been able to get away with it, and I find it disgusting.
I'm not sure, and I've got to pin you down here and get some specifics, because I'm not exactly sure. You're speaking in broad generalities here. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. You're not giving me specifics what you want the Republican Party to do and say in terms of outreach. You got to be specific.
Well, what I'm saying is, I'll openly acknowledge it's difficult from this standpoint, Sean. Okay, you have Republicans, when we talk about less government, less government, lower taxes, that's a message that people can relate to. But on far too many occasions, when we've seen a Nancy Pelosi, when we've seen a Harry Reid, when we've seen somebody else talking about universal health care, well, guess what? When we're fighting about universal health care, if Sean Hannity and Mark Levin go on the air and they're trying to decipher exactly what's being presented to the American people, the Democrats have been able to successfully come forward and say, well, they don't care about you. They don't care about the underprivileged. They don't care about people who are less fortunate. All they care about is making money.
I got the Democratic spin, and I got the Democratic, look, for example, it always troubles me that every election cycle, and we saw this going back to 1998, the Missouri Democratic radio ad that said if you elect Republicans, black churches are going to burn, the James Byrd ad, it's like my father was being dragged all over again, et cetera, et cetera. It's always frustrated me because this has been a tactic that has been used by the Democratic Party, albeit probably effectively. Demonization, lies, misinformation, and propaganda works, but I never felt it was accurate. And I do think the Republicans fought back. I'm just not so sure. It seems to me that the message of redistribution works among a large percentage of our population, transcending all issues involving race here, Stephen A.
Well, it does. But I got bad news for you. In large part, particularly when it comes to minority groups, it's actually working because of Barack Obama. People in minority communities are paying attention to politics now more than ever before, which puts individuals like yourself, like the Mark Levins of the world, and others in a position where when you're disseminating a certain message, now people are trying to listen to you now more than ever before because they want to hear specifically what you're saying and what your problem is with a Barack Obama. Whereas if it were Bill Clinton in office, they would sit there and summarily dismiss, that's just you guys, that's just politics.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think I would be any less critical if Hillary Clinton were president?
Not at all.
And making the same policy decisions as Obama?
Absolutely not. Which is why, on a personal level, which is why I defend you to the hilt. I have said this.
I know, but I don't like that you have to be in the position that you keep telling me to defend me because
I can handle that. I can handle that. The point is this. Here's the important part that people need to know about you. You are a hardcore conservative. I have said this to so many black folks. And remember, I'm a registered independent. Sometimes I think you're right. Sometimes I think you're off your rocker. But the reality is that Sean Hannity says nothing about Barack Obama that he wouldn't say about any other liberal. He can't stand liberals. That's the difference. And when you get that, when you express that message to people, you sort of force them to look at it. One of the problems that we have in the black community, in my opinion, I can't speak for everybody, but in large part, is this. We tend to get emotional because we look at the system itself that has historically been placed against us. There is a black man in office, and because of that, anybody that speaks against him, we surmise and assume that they're doing so because he's a black president as opposed to having problems with his actual policy.